the long-term dream of our nonprofit society, once we become legal, is to build a palliative care facility that is focused on cancer patients, so that we would be growing cannabis strains that would be specific to fight certain types of cancers, and making extractions and medicines on site, so we could provide like fresh juice and stuff like that to palliative care patients. And also have like a restaurant on site, so they would be able to get like really good high quality food that the public has access to as well, and a restaurant that they could purchase from to support us. And have an integrated health center there as well, so the patients would have access to chiropractors and dentists and stuff, so that you could go and literally kind of spend the day at the center and visit an old friend in the palliative care center while you get your dentistry done, and pick up some bread in the bakery, and pick up some medicine.
Sign up.
So that's the dream.
Thanks, Ted. Does anyone else want to describe their cannabis dream? Kelly?
Mine is actually really simple, because we all talk about cannabis is good for us and cannabis is medicine, but we don't often talk about what good cannabis is. So my main dream that I would have is that, of course, I could continue doing what I do in my life and continue working with children with cancer and people all over the world and coming together with this plant, but also that it's grown in the soil, it's grown out in the sun, it's grown in ways that it is being respected. We talk a lot about being respected for our rights and respected for the ability to be able to use the medicine, but also that the plant is being totally respected and that it's being grown in a regenerative way. So then we know that that medicine is true medicine.
My dream. Is it you, Joan? Are you supposed to dream first, or am I?
Your dream. You're the dream. You're the dream.
Okay. So when I think about my people, let's go to a few stats here. 50% of women in the prison system are Indigenous. 30% men. The children who are in the care system are high numbers. This is all from trauma. Huge traumas that we can't even talk about right now. That hurts so deep here. Our people have suffered so greatly. Now I'm going to go to something else. When my daughter here decided that she was going to walk this walk, my heart broke because of how much pain she was in. But this girl goes out on the streets and she helps people. She gives them medicine out of the goodness of her heart, out of her own pocket. That's part of the dream. The big dream right now for our family is the name behind her shop, Top Hat Cannabis. That name represents my late son, who's been gone now 6 years. Part of it was addictions. Part of it, I'm going to tell you, police brutality and racism killed my son. So much injustice. It breaks my heart that we see it repeated day in and day out, continuous. There are others like us. Our Indigenous people have a right. We have a right to this medicine. We have a right to govern on our lands with no help from the province, with no selective enforcement from the CSU. That is our right. The dream behind this is to have a healing center for our people, to be able to address those traumas, those injustices, so that our people can begin to heal using the medicines, healing on the land, going back to our traditional ways. We're not going to be healing in circles like this in rooms. We're going to be healing out on the land. And that's what we need. That's my dream.
restorative justice. Instead of focusing on the king or the queen being the primary victim, you introduce circle sentencing. When people commit offenses, if the victim is willing, they have to sit down in a circle and with guidance talk about, the offender has to talk about what they did and see what the impact has been on their victim. And we know that this is extremely more effective than what we currently do in the criminal justice system, trying to deter crime generally or specifically. We know because we actually have restorative justice programs in the prisons, and we know that the offenders who've gone through them end up with hugely reduced recidivism rates. So just another example of what we can learn from the Indigenous community as a better way to do things in relation to crime and punishment. So my dream, I agree with so many of what the others have said, so I'll just limit it to try to limit it to a practical lawyer approach in terms of the existing situation, and that is that cannabis be recognized as medicine, not just for the serious situations, but overall, and that we have a wide variety of people who can prescribe it or authorize it or recommend it or whatever, and that it's not taxed like other medicine, that it's insured like other medicines, and so that people who have a health desire to use cannabis to make them feel better because they're simply increasing their dopamine on their dopamine receptor sites, which is, I think Kelly mentioned, we have the endocannabinoid system that normally naturally produces these dopamine. We all have maybe different levels of it, but that's all that's really going on when you consume cannabis, is you're increasing the amount of dopamine in much larger amounts than what your body usually produces, but it makes you feel better. It removes symptoms of pain and other things like that. And it should be considered medicine without us having to classify between the most serious and the less serious types of matters. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you. What's your mushroom dream?
Yeah, so I mean, the mushroom dream is so similar to what everybody on this panel has said, because I think that the parallels are just, I think it needs to be, although it's not the same thing, treated extremely similar. This is a medicine that has, been around for time immemorial as well. And so when I think of what access looks like, I mean, day to day I'm working on something that we've called the APMPR, the Access to Psilocybin for Medical Purposes Regulations, but I don't think that's the end. That's the first step in a long journey, because I think the truth is that much like the prohibition of cannabis that does not work, the prohibition of psilocybin does not work, and if we limit it to only a subset of medical conditions, there's still people that are very, very good at being their own medicine person, healing themselves and using it the way they want to. And so just like these compassion clubs, where there are people using it saying to the government, this is how I want to use it, and they're being ignored. My hope is that similarly with psilocybin, we can put agency into every single person, regardless of what culture, what their beliefs are, and allow them to access something that they want to use for healing purposes. So I think our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, they also have a clause in there that says that everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. I believe that the future that we see is a realization of these charter and declaration rights. We actually realize this. I just think the government and our laws need to catch up.
Thanks, Spencer. Other questions?